Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Fall of the House of Usher, Season 1, Episode 6. This is the story of Goldbug, which, for me, just on the surface, we've established this in other videos. I'm a big Poe fan, and so I
Mhm.
always like to think about how these episodes are going to be connected to various works. Goldbug is not one of my favorite things that Poe has ever written by any means. So it's like I didn't have the same expectations coming into this that I did like The Telltale Heart, which is a story that I just really love, but I think they did a really interesting job within this episode of finding some new angles, some things that worked. It's not I wouldn't say it's in my top 3 of this season, but I did not necessarily see the end coming for Tammy that we got.
I was really excited about this episode because Tammy is one of the characters that has just been the most elusive. You just
Mhm.
don't know anything about her. She's so closed off emotionally. She cannot connect with anybody that I was like, okay, finally we're going to get an episode about her. Are we actually going to get in with her? Are we going to get to know her a little bit better? And we didn't. I came out of this episode feeling like a part of the Usher family where it's like, I still can't get close to her. I still can't get any deeper in with her. She's so closed off
Yeah.
that she is still closed off to the audience. And it was so well done in that way
Yeah.
because I went in with that expectation where it's like, oh, now finally we're gonna dig into Tammy. I'm gonna get to figure out about Tammy. No, she's not letting anybody in, and that includes me.
Does Tammy believe in no Tammy? I think she is about a projection. So much of who she is what she wants people to see at any given moment. And maybe she's a little chameleon like in that way. But if you do that too much, then you don't actually have anything underneath. And that's what makes her so interesting. It's what makes her reactions and her bizarre Living Plus esque presentation near the end of this episode so fascinating because she's just like oscillating between these different sides and having these different reactions based on what she's seeing or hallucinating. There's an unbelievable amount to get into here, especially when it comes to sort of theorizing the larger end game for
Mhm.
all of this. I'm feeling more confident than ever about my theory about what's going to happen to Frederick sooner rather than later as well.
I am feeling very confident now after this episode. I was already theorizing that Griswold is in the wall in the basement. I absolutely feel 100% that he is. I have a really, I think good theory on
Mhm.
what happened to him and how Roderick and Madeline ended up actually getting that company because just killing him is not going to hand them the company. But I have a theory on how they actually made all this happen.
All right. Well, before we dive into that theory and everything else from this just really awesome, incredible show. I mean, I'm not just trying to be on here just like blowing smoke, but this is just one of the best shows of the year.
Absolutely. And that's saying a lot because
Yeah.
we also cover Silo here at the channel, which is like a 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
blow your hair back show. It's so good.
And we also covered Hijack. Well, anyway, before we go further
Oh,
here, be
stop. How
sure
dare
to
you?
hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other coverage of Fall of the House of Usher. Now I'm just thinking about Hijack. But also, by hitting that subscribe button, you guys help us so much to create these videos that we love for you. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to get straight into the theory of it
Yeah.
all. So, a big theme of this season is forgery. We
Mhm.
know that Vic was forging documents. We know that Griswold was forging Roderick's signature on documents. There's a big theme
Yeah.
this whole season. So, this is what I think happened. Everybody, put on your
All right.
tinfoil hat.
Okay.
Let's get into some speculation here.
All right.
Okay, so like I said, I think that Roderick, Madeline, they walled up and killed Griswold. He is in the bottom of Fortunato. He is definitely down there. That is who Roderick is down there talking to. Madeline in this episode is like, your secretary tells me you're down here all the time. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop this. Like, you're circling around things that you need to not be getting some sort of attention on. Like, get out of here. What I think happened, especially in this episode, we saw back in the past, Roderick, working with Augie again. It's like, okay, you need to go into the basement, find these files, find whatever you can, and bring it back to me. And Roderick's like, okay, but you gotta hit with this. You can't miss. If
Yeah.
I'm gonna risk it and I'm gonna bring this back, you gotta hit with this. And Augie's like, I feel like I can do that. Okay. I think that what's going to happen is Roderick down in that basement is going to find Longfellow's will, or a version of his will,
Mhm.
and he is going to forge him and Madeline as heirs into this will. Then they are going to kill off Griswold, because even if they have a will that has them named as heirs, and I
Mhm.
mean, we even had a little bit of talk of this in the last episode where Griswold said to Madeline, I don't know why he didn't just make you heirs. Everybody knows about you anyways.
Yeah.
That if he puts themselves in as heirs, they're going to have to actually kill off Griswold, because Griswold has more money, more power than God. So even if
Yeah.
they're like, oh, here's a will, he will make that disappear. It won't do anything. So if Griswold is gone and then this will pops up, now they own the company.
Here is why I think you're right. Is that we've talked a little bit about this in some other videos, but I feel like this show is using Roderick Usher as sort of this projection of Edgar Allan Poe on the show. And we've referenced that, Longfellow is a reference to the poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and there
Mhm.
was a real Rufus Griswold in Poe's actual life. And in some ways, both of these men were rivals to Poe, whether it be professionally, they had some sort of axe to grind. Poe threw some accusations out there about them. And I think this show has such a dark sense of humor about itself that I can really envision in my head them setting up this idea thematically that Poe wins. And in that way, he is taking down his rivals in increasingly clever and interesting manners. And in doing this forgery, it would really be another sort of twist upon all that, or finding a way to snake Griswold in the end, because ironically Poe threw some accusations out there about whether or not some of his contemporaries were as original as they let on. So I think it would be a really smart, innovative way to sort of twist that, so Poe, or Roderick, comes out the winner, but not without getting his hands dirty, but also still projecting this idea of madness, which in real life, a lot of people were throwing at Poe. Like, there's all these people out there that think, oh, Poe was just completely insane by the end of his life. And you can certainly raise those questions about Roderick on the show as well.
Yeah, and so I also had a theory in the last video, or last couple of videos, that Madeline, where we are in the present with Roderick and Augie having this conversation in the childhood home where he's like, oh, that's just Madeline in the basement. All you hear is like
Yeah.
banging around. She's not actually with them, which would never happen.
Mhm.
Like, never happen. We've seen Madeline involved in everything. She controls everything. Her hands are in everything. So how would she just be down in the basement clanging around and not actually part of this conversation? 100% that's not happening. So my theory has been that Roderick has walled her up the same, and that they did with Griswold, that she is in the basement, she's walled up alive, or she's underground alive and she's banging around. She is there,
Mhm.
but alive. And because there was also a lot of like, oh, we're taking the bricks down from the wall one by one. There was like a lot of that talk in this episode with Madeline and Roderick, or like, oh, we're digging up the past. Like there's a lot of that going on. I was like, okay, so there's enough clues with that. But then we had this scene where right after everything that happened with Vic, there's Roderick, and he's sitting in his office covered in her blood. The heart is sitting on his table, and he has this speech about these sapphire eyes that he snatched
Yeah.
out of a goddess's head, that, he is now this god, that he is going to give these eternal eyes to his sister as a gift, and she hasn't had it yet. But I'm telling you right
Yeah.
now, 100%, we are going to see at the end of this show Madeline alive with those sapphires in her eyes, walled up. Like, there's no way that doesn't end up happening.
It's a really
I
cool
feel
visual.
really confident about it.
If they do that, I wouldn't be mad at all.
Because one of the other things about eyes that has come up
Yeah.
is Madeline said that she wanted Pym to take Verna's eyes and to bring them to her. So
Mhm.
the idea that she would then have that karma, that her eyes would be plucked, put in with those sapphires, she's walled up, all of it all kind of makes sense. And it's all kind of like, this is a loose theory, but I don't know. When she had that kiss with Verna, I've mentioned this in other
Yeah.
videos. When she had that kiss with Verna, I had wondered if there was a transfer of power that had happened there when she was like, "What do you want?" "Oh, I want to always have power over myself. I want to live forever." Okay, then there's this kiss and this. I think there was a transfer of power there because this episode where we saw Madeline run across the room to get to Verna and then grab her, and then there's dirt on her own hands or dust or soot or something on her own hands.
Yeah.
I wonder if Roderick's madness is going to turn into him thinking that Madeline is Verna the whole time and Madeline is the person that is killing off the kids. And that's why he walls her up.
I mean, based on what we have seen him sort of slowly deteriorate into, I think there's a very possible way to sort of connect those dots and see that it's happening. I think there's just one of a couple of different things that we're seeing in sort of the quote unquote present of the show. I think one of them is the idea that you're bringing up here, that Madeline is walled up and this is a byproduct of Roderick's own madness and his perceptions of her, because we're even seeing in this conversation with Doggy that there's all these different things that keep popping in and
Mhm.
manifesting themselves, and that's not even getting to the story part of it. But then there's this other idea that I've been having about, is Augie dead? And Roderick's talking to an imaginary figure, but I'm going to go beyond that. Is Roderick actually already either dead or in some sort of purgatory in this situation? And I don't even think this necessarily negates anything that you're saying, because all
No.
of this could still actually be true, and Roderick could also still be dead, and he's trying to sort of soothe his conscience and sort of clear everything out for whatever the afterlife is. And the biggest sort of evidence of something potentially supernatural is the perspective that he seems to have, and this idea that I've had conversations. I know what exactly happened to all of my children, that he explains to Augie. Like, this is somebody who, present day when he is, alive. That's not exactly a concept that is believable or possible or any of that. So it's either these conversations are a byproduct of his madness. And if we're to believe that, then I think we have to question whether or not anything we're seeing on this show is happening in the way it's depicted, or he's actually having some sort of conversations in a purgatory or an afterlife where he is actually getting either true information or information that's close to the truth as to what happened to these kids.
Okay, let's talk about Tammy
Yeah.
because oh my goodness, like for me I really like this episode
Mhm.
like a lot. It is one of my top episodes. It's not better than the Vic episode or the Prosper episode, but it's in my top 3 for sure. It started out where I was just like there's not as much about Tammy as I thought there was going to be in this
Yeah.
episode, but the conversations that she did have felt very meaningful. Like that conversation that she had with Juno, where Juno was mostly talking, but she was just basically like, man, like when I came into this family, like I really thought I don't have family. So I thought I was coming into like oh man, this is gonna be great. There's all these kids, like there's all these people, like I'm coming into a big family. I'm gonna be part of something.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like, have you ever just walked around this house? Like it's so lonely and you just feel alone, like all the time alone. And you could Tammy didn't have to say anything. You just see it on her face that she's just like Juno's talking right to her heart. Absolutely. She understands that feeling. Like she feels alone. She even said, oh, it's like, the Madeline and Roderick show all the time. And then the next in line is Frederick and I'm just the nothing kind of thing. Like she just feels invisible all the time that she's like the way to protect herself then is to be invisible. Like everything is just business,
Yeah.
nothing else. You can't get close to her. She can't even be intimate with her husband. She has to have intimacy through her husband and somebody else, of like, tell me about your day, or reading a book, or what things that she feels she should be able to do, but she can't. She just can't get there. Like, it's really heartbreaking.
This entire episode, to me at least, is about a battle against self, and that's a very interesting concept. I mean, we literally see close to the end of it Tammy fighting, a near,
Herself.
yeah, a replica of herself, of Verna herself, or whatever it is you want to call this. And this is somebody who doesn't fully, I think, know either who she is or who she wants to project to other people. She's constantly struggling that. I mean, the irony there comes in the fact that she's giving this presentation of just the most nebulous product of all time. This is why I made the Living Plus comparison. It's just like, can you actually say what Goldbug is? It's like, okay, so it is products for rich people that are kind of beauty related. I mean, they tell a goop joke in here. You can make those sort of parallels, but like Gwyneth Paltrow is at least a person who has like some element of fame. Like, you can name a couple of things with Gwyneth Paltrow. With Tammy, it's just like, oh, I'm going to take this random rich person's advice on X, Y, or Z, and not everything really connects. And even in the presentation, these audience members are seeing two different sides of herself, where she's, just like cursing and yelling and then trying to spin it and trying to be funny. It is the push and pull of all of this is very, very interesting. I mean, there were times where the battle stuff kind of threw me back a little bit to the Black Cat, and I like the Black Cat probably a little bit more than this,
Mhm.
just because it felt a little fresher. But the way that they played this still was really cool and interesting.
Yeah, it really was, especially seeing Madeline sort of the light bulb go off, because earlier we saw Pym come in and like, this is how far back this all goes. Like, this has been back since like 1901. This woman has been with powerful people that have all fallen in some sort of way that she has had some sort of influence on. Like, and now she's with you guys. And watching Madeline's face as she's watching everything happen with Tammy and that light bulb go off, where she's got puts on her glasses, she's looking
Yeah.
around, she's like, okay, where is she? Like, clearly this is happening again, and Verna is here, and she's here somewhere.
The way in which ultimately we see Tammy's demise, like, this is one of the cooler demises I think we've seen on this show. Like,
Wild.
the way that the mirror sequence was shot was really, really cool.
Chilling.
This seems like also one of the most painful ways to go
Ooh.
imaginable. I'm just throwing that out there. It made me feel really sick to my stomach
I don't know.
watching it.
That Prospero one was probably a pretty awful way to go as well. But yeah, no, the slow motion of
Yeah.
everything that happened on the bed, I mean, it was chilling.
Yeah, and even before all of that, I think there was just such an inevitability to it, because Tammy already knew before this happened that her life was effectively over. There was no way this product was ever going to succeed. There was no way anybody was going to buy into Goldbug Bug after all that.
No, did she kill Juno?
Yeah,
Like, she hit Juno so hard
Yeah.
in the head. I mean, like, oh my goodness, Juno. I don't know what it is about Juno, but I just really like her. I feel for her, but I really like her.
I think there's an interesting parallel, at least with Juno and Annabelle, where it feels like these two people that are sort of caught in the midst of all of this sort of drama that's going on in the Usher family, and they're, existing in a couple of different eras, and we
Yeah.
still don't fully even know what happened to Annabelle. But I think Roderick had so much. It's hard to really explain, but there was something about Annabelle that he wasn't able to find again until he had Juno. And this is certainly a guy who had been with plenty of women and was not
Yeah.
exactly a saint when it comes to all of that. But there's a connection there between those two that I think the show could explore a little more if they wanted to.
Yeah, like I found it really interesting too that Tammy died alone. That it was the
Yeah.
way that she sort of felt throughout life, that she was alone when that all happened, and seeing what Juno is going through, where she also feels again quite alone, where she was like, oh man, I'm coming in this big family and I'm just home alone all the time. Roderick doesn't answer his phone. Like, I can't get a hold of anybody. Like, oh my God. And for a while, I had actually wondered, like, I felt like Lenore was the informant before last episode. Augie was like, oh, there was no informant. I was
Yeah.
like, is he telling the truth? Like, I don't know that he's
Yeah.
actually telling the truth. I thought that Lenore may have stepped up. I thought maybe it was Juno at some point. She was just like, I have nothing to lose. I'm just by myself. Like, nobody cares about me. Nobody sees me. I'm
Yeah.
just invisible.
I think there's still a possibility that Augie wasn't telling the truth. I still feel like, because nothing on this show can be viewed as altogether reliable.
Well, yeah, especially since everybody's dying. At
Yeah.
that point, I had wondered if Augie just lied to protect whoever it was, because it was like, oh my God, like everything that's happened around me and all the people who are dropping dead, like I can't expose this person anymore. I better just like cover this up. Oh, there was never anybody.
Okay, let's have the Frederick conversation here,
Oh
because
boy.
we're moving to the end of Frederick, and I'm presumably we're not watching ahead, but that's probably coming up in the next episode
I
now.
would assume, yeah.
Not a lot of kids left here, but this I don't know if this says something bad about me, but I'm just basically in the spot now where I'm thinking about how zombie/mummy Maury is going to do away with him, because it feels to me pretty clear that this is how he's going to go at this point, where she is going to find a way to wake up, be invigorated. Something is going to happen, and she is going to get revenge, because what he is doing to her is so despicable, is so like I'm not saying any of these other kids are good, but he is just an awful human who's just not letting her speak. He's just like poisoning her from within, and it's awful.
I don't feel bad for Maury. I'm just going to say it. Maury made a choice that was despicable. She went to Prospero's party and a couple times went up to Prospero. She was there for the worst betrayal that you can have in a marriage. Now, I'm not saying what Frederick is doing is right.
Yeah.
But what she did was also despicable. Not okay in any which way. There's no excusing what she was going there to do. And with his brother, it's so bad. So, I mean, like all through this, I had been wondering why Frederick didn't leave her, didn't kill her, wasn't doing something like this, where he was basically like, I need you to still be conscious enough to continue to look me in the face of what you did to me, of how badly you hurt me, of how I can't leave you because all of these other things are happening in the family. I'm the person who's the first son. I have to be the person I'm in control of the company. I will be. I'm the, heir with flair. I have all the world's pressure on me. I'm now here with our daughter that I also have to take care of. You need to look me in the face every day and remember what you did to me and to this family. What he's doing is not okay. But I'm going to say that I understand why he's in that frame of mind, because if somebody did that to me, I mean, I would just leave them. But in the context of this show, I understand why he's in that frame of mind. He could have done a lot worse to her. And with how weird this family is, I'm kind of surprised he didn't. Now, this is my tinfoil hat.
All right.
It's not going to be Maury that gets revenge, because Maury started all of this. She doesn't, does she deserve revenge? I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide. The person who's going to actually end up taking out her father is Lenore. That's what I think is going to end up happening. And it may be an accident, like some of the other things that have been accident or whatever. But I think it's going to be directly related to Lenore. Lenore has brought up, where are the doctors? She's spending time with her mom to try to help bring her back to, health. Oh, what movie do you want to watch next? Oh, she's telling her she loves her. I think she's going to protect her mom.
Lenore's the real victim here more than anybody else. Like,
100%.
I feel so bad for her, because Maury, Frederick, if you guys were having this many problems, you should have just split up a long time ago. I know divorce is never easy, but you know what? It would be better for Lenore in the long run.
Yeah, then going to Prospero's party, and now like your daughter gets to carry that around, and then whatever, horrible stuff that Frederick is doing. Frederick.
Yeah.
It's not great. They're both, pretty crappy.
They are, and there's not a lot of good characters in this show in terms of like being benevolent or having that layer of goodness, and it's remarkable that Lenore is even the person that she is when you consider all the different influences around her. I think what's going to be interesting in this next episode is that yes, Maury did some very bad things that put her in that position in the first place, but we don't know her state of mind after all of this, and I think the
Mhm.
question then becomes, okay, how does she view what Frederick is doing to her versus what she did to Frederick? And
Yep.
also, how is Frederick going to view himself now that all of the other children are gone? And he should have always shouldered a certain degree of responsibility for looking after his family because
Mhm.
as you said, he is the eldest boy, and
He's the eldest boy.
when you are the eldest boy, there's supposed to be a certain amount of you look after your siblings that come along with that. And
Mhm.
this man has not just taken his eye off the ball, he's taken his eye off the entire playing field. He's like sitting there freaking bowling while his wife is in the other room bandaged up, and he is just like basically destroying her brain.
He is the worst child out of them to me. This
Yeah.
is I them saving him until the end is going to be delicious. Like
Yeah.
he is just an awful awful person. So
Yeah.
whatever's going to happen to him, I feel like is going to be very satisfying
Yeah.
to the audience, especially if it ends up actually being Lenore, because what happened to her mom? She doesn't know everything that happened that she did to start this ball rolling, going with his brother, going to this party of what
Yeah.
was going to happen, her approaching his brother at the party. She doesn't know any of that. She just knows that something bad has happened to her mom, and now something weird is going on with her dad that's hurting her mom.
Well, we just all have to prepare and steel ourselves for whatever sort of terrible, gross, dramatic thing is going to happen in this upcoming episode. And
You're coming. They're coming for you, Frederick.
Fred, buckle up, Buttercup. You're going to have a very difficult end of this show.
Yep.
I'm really excited at the same time. This show has been phenomenal. We're so grateful that you guys are here with us for this entire journey. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our takes on these final episodes of the Fall of the House of Usher. And thank you to our patrons as well for
Thank
your
you.
support. And we'll see you here next time.